Добрый вечер, друзья! Сегодня мы проведем интереснейшее интервью с королевой поп-музыки Дуа Липой. Я начну прямо с самого главного вопроса. Дуа Липа, сколько тебе было лет, когда ты написала свою первую песню? Первую. Это, кстати, очень многих интересует.
The first song I ever wrote, I was about 5 or 6. I made it for my mum, and I would sing it to her when I was around the house, and I would ask her, "Mum, please, can I keep your dress? Can I please keep your shoes? Can you please?" I just wanted to be as pretty as her, really.
Да, я хотел бы сказать, что у многих певцов, у них довольно-таки разные стили написания слов для песен. Некоторые сперва пишут слова, а потом делают музыку, накладывают на текст. А другие, наоборот, им понравилась какая-то мелодия, сочиняют мелодию, а потом они же под мелодию подстраивают уже текст песни, придумывают слова. Какой метод у тебя? Интересно.
With lyrics, it's always when something significant happens, I take it, I write it down, and when I go into the studio, I then put the words to melody, and if I still feel the same way about the words that I've written, then I feel like I should definitely carry on with the story. Everything I write about is quite personal, and it's all very autobiographical, so I'm more inspired by words than by melodies. And then I'd like to call my music dance crying, because they're all quite sad stories in a way, but then with the production I want it to be more pop, and I want it to be something that people can dance to. I guess my writing process is kind of crazy. I write so many songs, and out of 10...
Очень многих интересует, тоскуешь ли ты по дому, потому что у тебя очень много путешествий, ты все время в каких-то гастролях, турах, ездишь за границу, в Америку, в Л.А. И вот у тебя есть ли иногда такое тоскливое чувство по дому, ностальгия? Хотя не представляю, как можно ностальгировать по Лондону? Там постоянно идет дождь! Постоянно идет дождь!
It is, well, a feeling. And it was one that I was definitely feeling towards the end of writing the album. When I spend so much time on the road and I spend so much time away from home and I'm traveling so much, it's really when I'm in a hot place like LA and it starts raining that I miss London the most. And it's, you spend so much time away, and it's like the things that you hate about home are the ones that you miss the most. So the bad weather was definitely, I guess, the main influence behind everything. And singing about the reason, you make all these little sacrifices is to kind of make your dreams come true, and you work really hard because this is something that you've always wanted. But there's no denying that you occasionally get homesick and you do miss the rain.
Ты знаешь, многих интересует, как ты достигла такой популярности. Потому что молодежь, она тоже хочет быть известной, но она не знает методов, как этого достичь. И вот всегда интересен такой вопрос. Ты вот как певица, ты сама делаешь тексты для своих песен, свою мелодию, или ты сотрудничаешь с кем-то, с какими-то популярными композиторами или какими-то поэтами, которые выдумывают для тебя тексты для песен. Как все это происходит? Как вот эта вот кухня, вот эта вот, интересует людей кухня. Как приготавливается твое блюдо, песня?
With all the features that I've done, I've always wanted to work with people that did something quite different to what I do. So when I do come together with them, it's still quite distinct what I'm able to bring to the table. I was really lucky I got to work and write it with Chris Martin. And I was in London prior to going to LA to write, and I was in a meeting, and somebody had asked me who I would love to work with. And I said, I would love to get in the studio with Chris Martin. And it was more just me just putting it out there into the world. And I didn't expect for one of the lovely women who were in the meeting, and she said, I work really closely with Coldplay, why don't you send me some of the songs from your album and I can send them to Chris, he's very busy, but we can see maybe make something work. And I was like, okay, cool. So I chose a few songs on the album and I sent them over, and I just get an email going, why don't you go down to the studio and go and meet Chris and play him some stuff. And I was like, okay, cool. I didn't really think anything was going to come of it. And so I went to the studio and just sat there, me, Chris, and his engineer, Bill, and we just listened to all the songs on the album. And well, I was nervous just kind of playing all the songs. It was also really interesting to kind of get feedback from someone who I guess in a way makes popular music but is so different to the kind of music that I make, and just to hear their opinion, especially as an artist that I appreciate and admire. And he listened to everything and he was like, great, why don't we just try and write something else for the album? And I was like, right now? He was like, yeah, let's do it. And he just sat on the piano, and it was kind of crazy hearing Chris play the keys, because the second he started playing I was like, oh, this is Coldplay. Someone who you'd been hearing on the radio, I guess, your whole life, playing less than a meter away from you is really surreal. I had a session the next day, so I left, and we kind of left it that he would write some of it and I would write some of it, and we could come back together and put our ideas. But when I left, I also thought I was never going to come back. So I was kind of mentally prepared to just write it on my own. And so I just dropped him a text and I was like, okay, I have this idea and I have this time free. I know you're busy. Maybe we could get back in together. He's like, yeah, come down on Wednesday and let's finish the song. And we wrote the whole song. Chris started playing some chords on the piano, and we just went from there. We had mics set up in the room and I was just humming melodies and trying to see what sounds good, and we were making up different parts, and I guess some of it sounded like words, some of it was just mumbling, but it's probably the first time I'd ever done a song based on melody to begin with. I knew what the concept was going to be of it, seeing as, you know, we'd already come up with a title for Homesick and I knew what I was going to write about, but it was the first time that I just kind of went on the basis of melody, and it was really what kind of drove the song. And I went in and I recorded it, and then I kind of just went, please, will you sing on it? Because the whole time when we were writing it, we were singing it together, and it just felt so weird when I went into the booth and sang it on my own. And he agreed to do it, and that's really how it came about. Homesick was probably the last song to finish off the album. It was really that last trip to LA that I made, where when I hopped on the plane back to London, I was like, okay, I feel like I'm...
Недавно ты получила приз Грэмми за очень популярный альбом «Future Nostalgie». Ну, будущая ностальгия, да? Интересно, вот вопрос такой. Песни из этого альбома – это что-то твое личное, пережитое? Или это какое-то такое образное мышление? Знаешь, как вот артист воплощается в какой-то образ и пытается его представить. Ну, какой-то имидж сделать. Или это действительно то, что ты пережила? Вот. Что-то именно действительно личное, душевное.
For this album, it's all been just very personal. I feel like I've had a lot to say. Just because I never had the opportunity to really just put it down and try and tell a story and you know, kind of create a project like that, like an album, and be able to allow the fans and listeners to really get to know me on a more personal level. So I think I really just had the opportunity to travel, and I learnt to be more open and learnt to not be so afraid of my own thoughts and speak up about just things that I felt were really personal to me, especially when I would walk in a room with producers and songwriters that I'd never worked with before. It really taught me to be more confident and just go out there and just really say what I felt, and not be embarrassed and not be afraid of it. And I guess I just learned that the only person that was going to get a real honest song out of me was me. That's when I feel like I found clarity and I was really able to just write. I tend to write quite quickly, but this one just felt really easy. I guess it was just the perfect closing song.